Hello again. Everyone loves presents, don't they? I've had a few odd ones over the years, but generally I think I've done quite well. Once, however, I was given a big bouquet of flowers by a boyfriend who had upset me. They were rather beautiful and probably cost quite an amount of money, but each time I looked at them, instead of enjoying them, I felt sad and hurt. It wasn't Mike, by the way. But then there have been quite a few times when Esther or another child has given me a random flower that they've picked. A daisy, dandelion, something like that. Something with no monetary value at all. But those flowers have meant so much and often then been placed lovingly in an egg cup or similar in pride of place on a shelf. When it comes to giving, attitude makes all the difference. Trying to get back into my good books with an expensive gesture just reminded me of what had gone wrong. Whereas every time a child has presented me with a flower they have picked, it has simply been because they were being spontaneous and kind. Both of our Bible passages this week show us that when it comes to giving, just like so many other things, God cares far more about our attitudes than about the specific details. Jesus wasn't impressed by the large, showy amounts put in by the rich people in the temple, but he called others to notice the seemingly insignificant coins so generously given by the widow. The implication here is that God cares not so much about how much we give away, but rather about how much we keep. That's how true generosity is measured. I find that thought a little bit too challenging, if I'm honest. Jesus' response to the widow's giving shows us once again God's topsy-turvy kingdom. Why does Jesus have such an upside-down way of thinking about money? Partly because he knows that money has power. Jesus talks about money more than almost anything else because he loves us, and if we're not careful, we can become slaves to money. We'll always want that little bit more, never being satisfied. Jesus' solution, the antidote, is to hold on to our possessions lightly, to treat them as gods, like the widow, and to be generous with them. Not just a bit, while we can stay comfortable, and not with a great fanfare either, but true generosity. In the reading from Corinthians, Paul is encouraging the Christians to give, recognising the importance of both responding to God's generosity to us and meeting the financial needs around them. But he doesn't set amounts or quotas or bully people into giving. Instead, he says that each person should give as they believe in their hearts God is asking them to. We're told that God loves a cheerful giver. God would much prefer a daisy that we give because we love him than a showy bouquet to try to gain his approval. But how can we be cheerful when giving costs us? It's because of all the things that flow from it. I'm sure you've experienced the joy of giving gifts. It's wonderful to see that smile on someone's face when you give them a present that they love. That's a feeling, an experience that money can't buy. Or the joy we get from seeing the effect of giving to an organisation. Many people have been generous and experienced that joy, even those struggling financially in lockdown, in giving to the different charity appeals we've seen. A couple of months ago, we were all watching the total increase incredibly as Captain, now Sir Tom, walked around his garden raising money for NHS charities. The DEC has launched an appeal this week, giving us the opportunity to share our wealth with those in countries like Yemen and South Sudan, whose livelihoods and lives are being destroyed by COVID-19 in ways we can't even begin to imagine. And then giving to the church means that we get the joy of being part of what God is doing in our communities through the church's ministry and outreach. Like a lot of charities, Churches are struggling at this time. We in these villages are likely to have a significant shortfall this year. Without our services in church buildings, we haven't been able to take our weekly offerings, and all our fundraising events that help fund what we do as churches have had to stop. But most of our costs are still there. If you're able to make a donation at this time, that would really help us. You might like to think about it as if you're sponsoring me and the church to put together online assemblies for our local schools, phoning those who are isolated at home, or to support the bereaved, or any of the other things that the churches do to serve the communities here. God says that when we give to others, when we give to different organisations, he treats it as if we are giving to him. So we give God joy when we give cheerfully. There is also joy in responding to God's generosity to us. He has given us so much. How can we keep it all to ourselves? We're told that whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. The joy of money can go a bit sour, but the joy of generosity never does. We cannot outgive God. I dare you to try to. It's just not possible. My challenge to all of us this week is to pray about how we use the money and possessions that God has given us. How can we use them this week to bless someone? When we spend money, can we do it in a more ethical way? If, like some, we've emerged from lockdown with reduced spending and therefore a little bit richer than we were, what would God like us to do with that surplus? This week, talk to God about your money each day and see what you sense that he is saying to you. And then make sure you do something about it. Have a good week. God bless you. Goodbye.